Hey everybody, a while back I did a video on how to play Raider clips in OBS using Streamer.bot, and it got some pretty good traction, but there was also other stuff I didn't get to cover in that, but other things. I talked about how I use Streamer.bot to do all my alerts. So I wanted to do a separate video explaining how to do alerts. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Streamer.bot for your alerts in Twitch. So if you haven't seen that video, go check that out. That's a good video. And in this video, we're going to cover a couple of the same things. We're going to have to still connect OBS to our bot and to Twitch. And we're going to have another program that we're also going to have to use to really complete the effect of doing your alerts. So I'm going to cover doing it, obviously alerts from Twitch, and I'm going to do donation alerts. Now mine are going to be from Streamlabs. I've never used Stream Elements, but if you follow along with what I'm doing with Streamlabs, you should be able to extrapolate Stream Elements. It's going to be a very similar process. It's just going to be a different platform. But everything you need to figure out how to do that will be in this video. Okay, so first things first is that we need to make sure that we are, in fact, connecting our bot to OBS and connecting our bot to Twitch. So if you haven't done that before, if you're using Streamer.bot already, you probably are already connected to Twitch. But if you aren't, we're going to do that now. You can also do alerts from YouTube, by the way. So if you have a YouTube stream, if you multi-stream, or if you stream to YouTube and not Twitch, you can still use this. And I'm going to show you both. Again, it's going to work more or less the same. It's just going to be different connection, different variables. Okay, so let's get into this. First things first, we want to get Streamer.bot. If you don't have Streamer.bot already, you're going to go to Streamer.bot and you're going to download the bot. It's easy download. You just extract the files to a folder. There's no installation program. That's all there is to it. Here we are in Streamer.bot. Okay, we're on my actions screen. So these are all my actions. I have tons of actions. If you've never used Streamer.bot before, actions are just what you're having Streamer.bot do. It's all sorts of stuff that it's going to do. And then you have triggers that tell, okay, when this thing happens, then do the stuff down here in your sub actions. Your sub actions are what go with the triggers. So you have actions, which are just basically the overall, okay, this is the name of a thing I want to do. You have a trigger. This is what I want to do. And the sub action are, these are the things I want to do. This is what I want this action to do. So that's the main page. But before we do any of that, we're going to connect to our services. But first, you want to connect to OBS. So you're going to go to Stream Apps, OBS Studio. And now this is my connection. In the previous videos, I was showing the specific IP address for your OBS to connect. But I figured out later you don't actually have to do that. You can use the basic home IP address. So you'd add, give it a name, and then unless you've changed something with your port, if you haven't changed your port, you can leave that alone. And then do you need a password? Now that is entirely up to how you choose to set up your WebSockets. So in your WebSockets, you're going to go to Tools, WebSocket Server Settings, and then, okay, this is your server port. If you want a password, then you're going to tell it to require one. You can tell it that. And of course, you want to make sure Enable WebSocket Server is checked off. And see this, you can see the connection from Streamer.bot right here. And if you want to kick it, you click kick and that'll disconnect it. So make sure you make that connection. And make sure you have auto connect on startup, auto and reconnect and disconnect checked off or turned on. That way you don't have to connect manually every single time you launch OBS and Streamer.bot. It'll just do it for you. And then you want to make sure you're connected to Twitch or YouTube. If you use YouTube, again, you can use YouTube or Twitch, and you can use Kick. I'm just doing YouTube and Twitch. So we're going to go to platforms, and you're going to select Twitch for Twitch, YouTube for YouTube, and it's pretty simple stuff. For Twitch, basically, whatever account you're logged into currently, right? That's going to be whatever, like when you say to connect, that's the one that's going to try to connect to. So what you want to do is, if you want to first connect your broadcaster account. So instead of log out, you're going to have a thing for connect, and then it's going to try to connect. It's going to open up your browser to validate the token, and it's going to be your broadcaster account, and you'll just basically confirm that you want to connect, accept the token, accept the token. YouTube, very similar thing. Got to be connected to the right bot. And you'll just, instead of having log out, you'll have connect, and you'll have an option for a streaming account and an option for a bot account, and you just connect to both of those. It's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about either of them because I think you can figure it out. Again, if you're already using Streamer.bot, then you already know to do this, so there's no point. Okay, so now you're connected to OBS, you're connected to Twitch, you're connected to YouTube. Now, there's one other thing we're going to use. To complete the effect of your own alerts. Now, when you Streamlabs and you Stream Elements, there's a TTS voice that reads messages. Now, since we're not using those accounts, we need something to read that voice, to read that text in a voice for us. And Streamer.bot also makes a program called Speaker.bot. So if you go to Speaker.bot, you're going to download the Speaker.bot program. And again, just like Streamer.bot, there's no installation program. It's just a file you unzip to whatever location you want. Okay, and then you're going to launch Speaker.bot. And you go to Settings, the WebSocket server. And this here of course, this is already connected because I'm using it. But when you get in here, you're going to see Start Server, the active button. You'll hit Start Server, and that'll allow you to connect other programs, such as Streamer.bot, to Speaker.bot. And then you're going to check off Auto Start. So again, you don't have to do this manually every single time you start the program. Then in Streamer.bot, you're going to go to Integrations, and you're going to go to Speaker.bot. And this obviously will say connect instead of disconnect because you're not connected yet. IP address, just your standard home IP address. You won't have to change that. And your port number, unless you change that in your WebSocket server on Speaker.bot, you won't have to change that. So you'll just hit connect, and it'll connect to Speaker.bot. And then we're going to do like we did before with our other connections. We're going to do auto connect, keep that on, and auto reconnect on. So again, we don't have to do this manually every single time. So auto reconnect is if something happens and you get disconnected, it'll reconnect as soon as it sees Speaker.bot again running on your computer. Okay, so now we've got all the software we need. I'm going to go into how to get the voices you want for Speaker.bot a little later, but we're going to do some basic stuff first. So you're going to need a way to obviously display everything in OBS. So I'm going to show you in my the instance of OBS that I use to do my streams in what I've got. So this is my scene for alerts. I have a separate scene for my alerts. So I can use that as a nested scene in other scenes, so I don't have to do all this crap in every single scene. I can just put it in one place. Not all this stuff is directly related to what I'm doing today. Some of this is other things that I use. Like this is my Raider clip thing, that I did in my last video. This is where that appears. So I can play clips from a Raider. Dragon. And I'm on Wi-Fi right now, so that's loading a little slower than it would on a solid connection. Try to always stream on an Ethernet connection, by the way. It's much more reliable. This is a couple of chat overlay things I was experimenting with, so I can have chat from two streams on top. This is my little cat cam, show my little kitty cat. Again, all stuff that appears on top of everything else. It might be a little sloppy for me putting it all in the alert scene, but that's where it is. And this is if I actually got donations on my stream from Stream Elements, this would be my donation total. I know Stream Elements has its own donation totaler, but again, I'm trying to use as little Streamlabs, Stream Elements as possible. So I'm doing that with Streamer.bot, and I might make a stream on how to do that sometime in the future. But for now, we're going to stick to alerts. So the stuff I'm using here, alert message 2, that's when I use Streamlabs. I haven't removed the source yet. Alert video, alert image. That way, if I want to use a video as opposed to a GIF, I can use that. But yeah, both of those there. So I have a text box, alert message 1, and that's where I'm going to put things like whoever sent something and like how much they sent, or like the username, the user of the person who's setting off the alert, the name of them, and then the message. Don't worry, this won't look like that if you have a cheer or bits. It's just because there's nothing populating the variable. And you'll see all that later on. And then the alert image here. And Streamer.bot plays the sound, any sounds. You're going to have to create a few different things. Like I said, you want to do your alert image. So this is my alert image. And you're going to have to set some things in the transform so that it works properly. So if we go into transform, edit transform, right? You want to set a few things so that everything stays in the box like you want it. So this is how I have it set up. And everything stays in the box. So this is the height, width, obviously. That's the bounds. So I have it set to cover now. I don't remember what it was called before, but in the current version of OBS, it's cover. So if you don't set it right, things aren't going to stay in the box properly. It's not going to stay in the same place. So make sure you kind of like set stuff to stay put. Okay, so this is a position here, size, width. This is the bounds, and you can adjust those to how you want it to fit exactly. And select cover to make sure that it stays in the same place. Okay, and then we have our message boxes. I'm gonna hide that for now. Our alert message. And if you go into transformation and transform and edit transform, this we're gonna do fit. So again, this is so it stays like in the same place, because otherwise it's kind of hard to explain. If you play around with it, you'll see if you don't set things right in your transform, text is going to bounce all over the place. It's not going to, like, depending on the length of, like, say the username or the message, it's going to move all over the place. It's not going to fit in the same place. You want to make sure it's locked in to where you set it, right? So you're going to play with these for your stream to make sure everything looks pretty for you. We're going to set bounds to fit. That way, everything stays in there. And then your alert message 2, this is going to be like, hide that. If, say, someone does a cheer, gives you bits, or if, say, they have a resub message, it'll appear in this box here. And again, we're going to go to transform, edit transform. You can see once again, we have it set to fit, the bounds to fit, so that the text always appears in the right place. And again, you set your width and height to fit your stream. Like I said, mine, I have it kind of centered in near the top. You might put it someplace else. So these values are going to vary depending on your streaming setup. So again, don't feel like you have to use the exact same width and height, the exact same position I'm using, but definitely make sure you have the bounds on the text set to fit, or it's not going to display properly like you want it to. Okay, and then we're going to lock that so we don't actually move it. We're going to hide that. Now, those are where we're going to send our image. Like if we have a GIF, it's where we're going to send our alert messages. And now if you have a video, so this is, so I have a thing, I have a channel point redeem where I read from the Conan O'Brien, the year 2000 book. I'll just read a random couple of jokes from that, and that'll go off when they set that. And you can also use that for other messages. I'm going to make that play again so I can find it. Hold on. Okay, and you're going to, I'll let that play out. You're going to go into your transform, edit transform, and again, you can do fit. So that if you have different size videos, if you don't do fit, it's gonna resize, and then it's gonna change your box, and it's not gonna look right. Right? So it's not gonna stay, say, where you position it. It's not gonna stay in the bounds you want it in. So by doing fit, no matter what video you put there, no matter what clip you put there, same with image, no matter what clip, no matter what GIF you put in there, it will fit in the same spot, and it won't screw up your layout. Everything will stay the same. Because even if you lock this little lock icon, if you don't have this set to fit and you have a different video aspect ratio or in the image, a different image size, it's going to change the dimensions and it's going to screw up your thing for anything else that appears. So make sure you do fit so it stays put the way you want it. So now we have to know how to send stuff to that. So we're going to go into here. We're going to go into Streamer.bot and we're going to start setting stuff up. So again, all this stuff's set up, but I'm going to step you through what things you need to set up to make this work. So in actions, you can group your actions into different groups. So I have all my alerts in this alert group right here. So I have a donation alert that's going to go with Streamlabs. Okay, that's another thing we got to set up. I'll show you how to do that when we get to a donation alert. We're going to stick with the Twitch and YouTube alerts for now. And then I'll go back and I'll do the Streamlabs for donations. Okay, so here I've got like Twitch bits when someone sends bits. I have a follow when someone follows. I have gift subs, prime subs, different kind of subs. And Twitch raids, Twitch subs, even watch streaks. Now, that's a great thing that you can't do with Streamlabs. I don't know about Stream Elements, but Streamlabs, as last time I checked, you can't set up any alerts if someone has a streak. But with Streamer.bot, you can. So let's start with something basic. Let's start with a Twitch follow. So now, here is what we call a trigger. This says, when this thing happens, whatever this trigger is, we're going to do all this stuff down here. That's when we want to activate this action. So this is the action. That's like the overall name of it. And this is all the bits of it. So here we're going to use a Twitch follow. Now you can search for triggers here. So you can do Twitch follow and you can select from there. Or alternatively, if you want to do it the old fashioned way, right click here, go to add Twitch channel follow. Okay, yeah, you go to add Twitch channel follow and you'll add that trigger. And that's going to now tell it every time someone follows your channel on Twitch, it's going to trigger this action, your follow action. Okay, so when you add an action, you'd right click in here, you do add, and you'd say follow, and then you're going to pick your group. If you don't have a group set up, all you have to do is type a group name, it'll create a group. And we're also going to put in a queue. So this is obviously, this is new. It's just going to the default queue. So I'll show you on our Twitch follow. Now we got to go back to Twitch follow. I made a queue called alerts. And again, if you don't have any queues made yet other than default, all you do is type a new name. It'll create the queue for the first one you make. Okay. So I made a queue for alerts. Now, important thing about queues is a queue will allow you to group things together. And I'm going to show you in queues. See, here's my alerts queue. And if I do not have blocking set up, then different alerts or triggers are going to different actions are going to interrupt each other. So the good thing about having a queue is you can select blocking, and that way one action won't start until another action is finished. Now, this is important for alerts because if, for example, someone follows and this action starts, it could be mid-action, and then all of a sudden someone at the same time while that's going off does a raid or a sub or maybe another follow, and then all of a sudden it'll just suddenly start another alert. Now, if it's something that doesn't go to our alerts, it won't interrupt this alert, but it'll be two things going off at once, and that's annoying. But since our alerts are all going to the same image sources and text sources, if someone else comes in and follows in the middle of this follow, it's just going to interrupt. It's just going to start that one and interrupt the flow of that. So you want to have blocking on so that all these alerts go off one at a time. So even if you're not using the same text and images, you don't have a bunch of things going off at once. That can be a cacophony. So now, in our sub actions, we're going to start sending stuff to OBS. So we're going to do, say, we want to send a message to alert message and alert message and alert image. So for a follow, there's no messages. There's only, there's no message that the user can send. There is only the message that such and such a person has followed you. So we're going to go right click we'd add, and we go to OBS Studio. We go to sources, and we go to set GDI text, and that will allow us to change the text in that message box. So then you go in here. Now, if you have only one version of OBS running, just leave it to default. You're probably only using one instance of OBS. Then you're going to go to scenes. You're going to pick the scene that the source is in. In this case, it's alerts. And then the source, we want to set alert message. And then we want to send the message there. We want to say that the person who followed us has followed us. Okay. So any variable we use is going to be a variable, and I'll show you how to get the variables in a second. There's a variable called user, and that will be the username of the person who just followed you. Now, all variables go in percent signs. So if I do %user just followed on Twitch, that is going to send the message that such and such a user has followed on Twitch. That's going to appear in that text box. So where do we find that, you may ask? Okay, good question. Very good question. If you want to find any variables, right, we're going to do a test so that it shows up in our queue. And then we're going to go to action history. Now, even if you have nothing here, it's okay. Even if you put nothing down here, it's still going to set the trigger off. It's still going to show up in your action history. We're going to go over here to action history. And this is Twitch follow. Double click on that. It's going to show you all the variables and what's in them. Okay. So here you see user, and then you have username. It really doesn't matter. The only difference is if you use just user, it's going to show the text, I believe, how they format it, how that person has it formatted in chat display. So like capitalization, everything will be the same, as opposed to username, which will just show the username all lowercase. I could be wrong, but either one will show the username. You can always experiment and try either one to see which one you prefer. But that's where you find that variable. And you can see there's a whole other bunch of variables here if you need them. There's, say, broadcaster ID. That would be your broadcaster ID. User ID would be a numeric. You're not probably going to want to use that, but it's there. User type, Twitch. That would come in if if like you were doing a YouTube, you know where they're coming from. Is subscribed. If they're subscribed, you'll say true. Are they a moderator? They're VIP. Now, obviously, if someone's following you, they're probably not a moderator and they're probably not subscribed yet. But those options are there. Trigger category. Again, a lot of this all of this you're not going to need for this except for user and or username, depending on which one you want to use. But these are all the different variables and what's in them. So you can find, if you're doing another thing, if you're setting something else up and you need a variable and you want to know what's available to me, you can go right to this kind of thing and find it. So that's a handy thing to have. So if you need variables, so that's where we find user and what the username. That's how we find out what variable to use here. Okay, so we're going to send that to our message, and then we're going to pick an alert image. So again, we're going to we'd right click, add, OBS Studio, sources. We're going to say, set image source file. And that's going to pick what image we want to appear for this alert. All right. So then just like the other, it's going to be the same way you set up, default connection for most of you, the scene it's in, alerts, the source, and then you use this to find your image. So it's just you just find the file path for the image. So in this case, mine is Rider Scream. It's from an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. And so that's going to appear right here, right? But we haven't told OBS yet to show it. So now we got to go back and we got to make sure that we show it, right? Because we're going to have a sound effect that goes with it. But first, we're going to display it. And that's a very simple thing to do, right? It's just like this. You're going to go right click, add, OBS Studio, sources, and set source visibility state. We're going to do that for both our text and our image. So again, you'll set it up just like before. Again, you probably won't have to change default connection. The scene is alerts. The source is alert image. And then we're going to set it to visible. We're going to do the same thing for our message. Again, it's the exact same. Set source visibility, except this time you do alert message. You can even just copy and paste those sub actions if it makes it easier for you. Okay, and that's going to display the image for us. And you can set transitions on your, like, different transitions on those sources in OBS if you want to fade in, if you want to hard cut in, whatever. And now I want to play a sound. I want a sound effect with mine. So we could have a media source in OBS, but I think it's just easier to play the sound in Streamer.bot. So you'd go right click, add, core. This is like Streamer.bot stuff. And then we're going to go to sounds and play sound. Okay. So you're going to say, okay, output device application default. Again, you're probably not going to have to change this if you just want it to play in your stream. You can give it a name. You don't have to. Like if you right now I have it turned to use file name, so that's just what it uses. If I want it, if I turn that off, I can give it a specific name. Again, that's entirely up to you what you want to do. Then you find your audio source. So this is my rider screen. And then we're going to check finish playing before continuing. The reason we're doing that is so that it doesn't then move on to hide our source before it's done playing. Right? If we turn that off, it's going to just jump on to our next steps. I have a little delay because I want the source to stay visible a little longer. But if you didn't have that, it's going to, like, if you don't have that on, it's going to start playing. And while it's playing, it's just going to continue on its merry way, do this delay, and hide the source. And it might be hiding the images before your sound is finished. So we're going to keep that, we're going to turn that on. And then you can set your volume. If it's a little quiet, if your sound effect's a little quiet, you can turn it up. If it's a little loud, you can turn it down. The audio file I got for this was kind of quiet, so I set it to 200%. And then you can test it, make sure it's playing. Okay, and I put a little delay. Again, this is for my preference. I thought it closed a little soon. I thought it jumped. It was a little quick. I wanted it to stay longer. So if you go right click, add, core, and delay, you can add in so many milliseconds how long you want to pause after that before going on to the next step. If you have a longer, if your audio clip or your image is, your audio clip is longer, then it'll stay up long and you're satisfied with that. You don't need the delay. It's up to you. And then we're just going to take these two things here. You can copy and paste them down here. So let me show you. Highlight, copy sub action, and I'd go down here, and then I'd paste sub action, which I've already got sub action. And then you can just copy and paste both of those, and then just change the state to hidden, and it'll hide the source. So now, when someone follows, Streamer.bot is going to put their, set your message for the follow with their name. It's going to set the image that you selected. Then it's going to display it. It's going to show both the image. It's going to show the message. Then it's going to play any sound you selected. Then it's going to hide both of them. Okay, so let's see how that looks. So you can just test that. You can either simulate. If you simulate, then you can pick a specific user. If you just test it, it's just going to find a random Twitch user and stick it in there. And then I have a 2,000 millisecond delay, and then it hides it. And that's pretty simple. That's pretty much all there is to something like that. It's a very simple, straightforward thing to do. And now, all our other alerts are going to be very similar, except some of them are going to have a message, like a secondary message, and some of them aren't. It just depends on what kind of alert it is. So, for example, like subs do not have a message associated with them on Twitch, but resubs do. So let's show you a couple. I'll show you a couple of those. Again, all of them work very similarly. Once you know how to do one, you can pretty much do the others. So let's look for something that has a message. Okay, so there's various things that use a secondary message. So I'm going to go with, we'll do Twitch, we'll do cheers. We'll look at how to do cheers. So cheers, again, this is going to use the secondary message. People can type a message with a cheer. All right. So first, you want to add your action. So you'd add and you'd give it a name. Like I have a Twitch bits put it in the same queue with all your other alerts, so that you have the same queue as all your other alerts. You have queue blocking. As long as you right click and add your alert, your action within the same group, it'll just automatically fill in that group name. And then, of course, if you put it in a different group, you just change the name, and it'll put it in that group or create that group. So we want it in alerts. We want it in our alerts queue. And I've already made that, so we're not going to make it again. And then we want to set our trigger. In this case, we want a trigger for a cheer. So once again, you can either search for it here to add the trigger, or you can just right click, add Twitch, chat, and cheer. And it'll give you this box, and you can set to a minimum or a maximum number of bits. It's a good idea to put some kind of lower limit, on when this alert will go off, because sometimes people kind of abuse it, and they'll send in they'll just want their message to appear on your stream. And if you set it to 0, they can tip 1 bit. They can tip 1 bit, and you can have people just totally derailing your stream, spamming it with messages just because they want their thing to appear on stream. So if you set a little higher, it kind of discourages that. Obviously, you probably want higher than 5. 5 isn't much, but pick whatever you're comfortable with. Or if you leave it blank, it'll just do it for any amount. Again, I recommend putting a minimum on it, especially if you're a larger streamer. And again, you can have a maximum if you want, like, say, anything higher than this. Maybe you get people who just want to show off how many bits they're giving, and you don't want them doing that either. I don't know. Again, it's all up to you what your preferences are. And like before, we're going to set text sources in OBS. We're going to first set message, which is going to be the person that is sending the bits and how many bits they're sending. And so it uses user for the variable for the user, just like before. And conveniently, it just uses the variable bits for the number of bits. So whatever your message you want, mine is like the username. Thanks for however many bits that you have. Make sure you select the scene and the source that you're doing. So like obviously it's the alert scene, alert message, just like before. And we're going to use user and bits. And that's pretty simple. And that's what you've done before. However, what you haven't done yet is do a message that they've sent. So that's going to be a little different. And this can vary from trigger to trigger, which variable you use. So in this case, the variable I use is message cheer emote stripped. There's this, and there's also message, and there's also message stripped, which I'm not sure what just message stripped does. So I've never actually bothered with that. If you just use message, it's going to have all the emotes. The trouble is we can't display emotes in a text box. I'm not sure there is a way to send the emotes to OBS. If you know a way, please let me know. But right now, I don't know how to do that. So if we just send message, what we're going to get is all the names of the emotes in the message, which is kind of ugly. So if you do message cheer emote stripped, then it'll just show the message and not the emotes, which is going to look a lot nicer. And again, if you want, I've already triggered this. So if you go into your action history and you go into Twitch bits, that's the name of my action, whatever the name of your action is, double click and it'll show you all the variables available. So here's message stripped. Again, I'm not sure what that does, but clearly it does not take the emotes out. There's message cheer emote stripped, and that'll give you just the message. So here you can see their test message. When you do a test of the trigger, it tries to use the emote Swift Rage 47. And again, that's not going to appear in a text box, so it's just going to show text and not the emote. So we're just going to use message cheer emote strip, and that's going to come in handy later too. Okay, and then we set our image. So whatever our image is for a cheer or bits, whatever you want to call it, being donated, you're going to set alert image to that GIF or that still image or whatever you use, and then it'll set that for you. And then we're going to do just like before. We're going to use add source OBS Studio sources, set source visibility to display our text, both our messages, text message, and our image. And then we're going to, if you have a sound associated with it, most of us have a sound associated with our alerts. You're going to do just like we did with follows. We're going to go add add core sounds and play sound and whatever sound you want to play. Mine is a Zelda rupee sound. I also use a rupee for my bits. And then make sure you, of course, turn on finish playing before continuing, or it's going to go on hide everything, all the visuals before the sound's done, and that's going to look pretty bad. You know, that's not going to be what you want. And then here's our other thing. Now, this is where Streamer.bot comes in, because we want it to read a message just like it does with Streamlabs or Stream Elements. We want a TTS voice to read it. So now to send it to Streamer.bot is pretty simple. Add Streamer.bot and speak, and that's what the sub action you use to tell it what to say. And there's a thing, and I'm going to show you how to set up your voices in Streamer.bot in a moment. So you can have various voice aliases that you have to set up. I just have mine default. And again, I'm going to show you how to set that up, and you can name what you want, and you'd pick the voice alias that you want to use. And we're going to hit delay. Delay is the same thing as waiting for the audio sound you had to play. You want it to let Streamer.bot finish reading the message before it carries on with the rest of the action. And we're going to use message cheer mode strip. And this is especially good for your TTS, because you really don't want the TTS reading the emotes. Or maybe you do. If you want TTS reading the emotes, then instead of using message cheer emotes stripped, you can do message if you find it amusing for it to read off all the emotes. But again, that could get a little annoying. Entirely up to you what you want to do. And then it'll send that to Streamer.bot, and Streamer.bot will then read the message. So now we have to show how in the world do we make Streamer.bot work. I've showed you how to connect it, but you need voices in order for it to work. So let's go to Streamer.bot, General. And this is all sorts of information about Streamer.bot, again, volume and everything else. I don't think I ever ended up changing any of this, but you can connect to various things with this. If you're going to connect, I think you can connect to Streamer.bot's website for certain things, but we don't need that for this. So we're going to go to speech engines. Okay. Now this is the speech engine I have. This is a free one Microsoft does called SAPI 5. So when you come here, this is all going to be blank, and you're going to go to add. Now SAPI 5 isn't listed here, or SAPI, or however they pronounce it, because I've already selected it. But there's all these other TTS services you can use too, but they have free trial periods, and then they shift over to costing money. It's not super expensive, so if you want to use them, you can. But if you just want a free one, the SAPI will be listed there, and this has two very basic TTS voices. They're nothing fancy, but they get the job done. Microsoft David is a male voice. Microsoft Zero Desktop is the female voice. And they're pretty much like your old-fashioned TTS. Doesn't really sound much like a real person. But that will live locally on your computer. You can actually put that on your computer as opposed to using a cloud. So there is an advantage to that. It may not sound as good as the others, but because it's on your computer, it'll be instantaneous as opposed to potentially waiting for a cloud server to read it. I'm trying to avoid using cloud services. But these are all the various ones you can choose. Again, and you can look into those. Again, most of them, like Amazon Poly, has a free trial period. And then again, it's pretty cheap. But again, if you're a small streamer like me, it's not really worth it. And I think Google Cloud TTS has a free sample trial period, as does IBM Watson. I'm not sure about all these, but if you go to Streamer.bot's website, it'll tell you Streamer.bot's website, it'll tell you like which services offer what. But again, Microsoft SAPI is what I'm using. It's just basic. But you pick whichever one you want. And then from there on, setting up all the other stuff is pretty much the same. So now we need to set up a voice alias so that Streamer.bot knows what voice you want to use. So here is what I've got. Mine's just called default, and it uses Microsoft Zero. So we want to set a new one, and you're going to say, let's say we call it voice 2 add. Okay, and then we want to pick what voice to use. Now, if you leave it at random voice, If you can use random voice, and it'll just pick, like between this, there's only 2 voices. It'll just randomly pick 2. If you're on one of those services, you have multiple, it's going to pick a random one of those, or you can pick a specific one. So let's say I wanted to pick David. Okay, pick David. I can see what it sounds like.
This is a test message.
I can change how fast it goes. I think it goes up to 5. I think there's like 5 different speeds. So like if I set it to 3.
This is a test message.
It's very fast. I think 5's the max.
This is a test message.
That's a little too fast. I usually just leave it at 0. You can change the pitch if you want. And then once you decide which one you want, you click add, and now you have a voice alias, voice 2. Okay? Like I said, my example is using default, but that's how you'd set up a voice alias so that it knows what voice to use. So now you have a voice alias. So if you were sending, so like if I had voice 2, I'd put voice 2 here for voice alias, and it would use that one, and then it would send this message. And
percent message shear mode stripped percent.
And again, there's no message in there because there's nothing populating that variable, so it's just reading the variable name. But I'll show you a test afterwards, okay? And then you can hear it actually saying a message. So now, all we gotta do like before is just hide everything that we just made visible. And also, very important, make sure all your sources that you're hiding and showing have the same transition on them so that they all go away and appear at the exact same time. Because like you have a fade transition on one, and you just have don't have any transition on another, then one's going to just blip out while the other gradually fades away. It's going to look real ugly. So just make sure that they all agree that they're the same high transition and show transitions on them, so it looks better. Okay, so then you're just gonna, like I said, you're just going to hide those sources. Now you're done, and that is a cheer alert. And now if you want to test it out, you have simulate. If you use simulate, you can actually pick a username and stuff and a message and stuff. I don't think you can pick a message. No, you can't pick a message, unfortunately, but it'll give it a default message. So here, like I could have myself doing it, or like I can look up like someone else I like I can look up one of my favorite streamers, Robot Co-op, and test it with their name. It doesn't matter really, but you can pick a name, you can pick a cheer amount, so you can have it test that.
This is a Twitch cheer trigger test.
So, okay, there. And see, that makes it show. So once it has something populated there, it'll show. Okay, so that's your cheer alert, and it's pretty simple. So let's say now we want to do a sub. A sub doesn't have a message. So basically, all you gotta do is you can just take your Twitch follow. You can like duplicate your Twitch follow. You can say duplicate, and then just change the name of it, right? Because you can just right click. You can just edit the name and make it the name for the right thing. And then basically just change the trigger, right? So for a Twitch subscription, you just take that follow trigger when you copy and paste this, and you delete that, and you just add Twitch subscriptions, and then you have all sorts of different types of Twitches you can pick and subscription. And then, then you can just update all your sources to what you want for that particular trigger, for that particular action. Because again, it works pretty much exactly the same. It's just you're just using different images. But again, everything else is pretty much the same. And then again, you can have triggers for all sorts of different things. So like that's just a regular sub. You can have one for a Twitch Prime sub. Again, it would work exactly the same, just a different trigger. Just use the correct trigger for it. Again, gift sub, same thing. Now, a resub's a little different because they have a message. But like I said, I already showed you how to do a message, right? So like this time I use message stripped.
It stinks.
I know that does not, it doesn't keep emotes out. But it doesn't have one I think in that case, message strip does keep the emotes out because as you can see, there's no option here for something without emotes. So I use message stripped. If you just use message, that will work. I think it might leave in the emotes. I've never really had a message come in, like a resubscription message come in with emotes in it. So I've never had a chance to actually like look into that. And again, use the same thing with Streamer.bot. So it's going to just be set your alert, set your image, set your message 1, set message 2. So message 2 is going to be message stripped, or alert message is just going to be username has subscribed for, and then you have the variable cumulative that will let you know how many months they've subscribed for. So this is a resub. So of course, yeah, that's another variable you can use. So you can actually say like how many months they've resubscribed for. That'll be in like message 1. And then message 2, again, will be whatever message that they sent with their resub. So it sets up otherwise the same as your other alerts did. And of course you can also do watch streaks. I have one for watch streaks. And again, you set it up pretty much the same, except for some reason you can't get the message that comes with the watch streak. So all you're going to be able to do is have a message that says like username has been watching for X number of streams. So watch streak is how many streams their streak is. And again, like you can make that message whatever you want. You can include the number and you can just say thanks for the streak. However you want to set that up. And again, it works like all your other alerts, just with the proper trigger. So you go like add Twitch, chat. Yeah, chat, watch streak, and then it'll go off for a watch streak. And again, and with this, you can set it for like, if you only wanted to go off for like a certain number of streaks, so like, you can't even set off a streak without a minimum of 3. So obviously it'll default to, your default you'd want to be 3, but if you wanted to like, only if it's a streak of this many or higher, you could set a minimum. So like people's first watch streak doesn't pop up. But that's up to you. You can set that to whatever you want. Now, I mentioned you can also do YouTube. We connect you to YouTube, right? So the only real thing there is on YouTube that you're going to want to alert for, well, no, there's more things, but the main thing on YouTube that I have it set up for is a subscriber. And again, this sub-action section can look just like you do with Twitch, only in this case, you're getting your trigger from YouTube. So you go add YouTube, general, and new subscriber. Again, it's not quite as robust as Twitch. You can't quite get alerts for as many things as Twitch because YouTube isn't as robust as Twitch. But then you can do new subscriber. All right, you set your text, and it uses the same variable as Twitch uses for a follow, username. So you can just do username, subscribed on YouTube, and you can have an alert. And then again, everything else sets up the same as your follow on Twitch or your sub on Twitch, just using obviously a different trigger. And you can have a custom image that's specific to YouTube if you want. So all that's pretty simple. So the only other thing that's going to be different, I mean, like all these other alerts, again, other than just being specific to what type of subscription is, it all works pretty much the same. It all works the same, just a different trigger. Donation's a little different because it's connected to a different platform. It's similar. It's almost exactly the same. It's just slightly different. So in this case, I get my donations through Streamlabs. Unfortunately, I have no other way to get donations, at least that I can get an alert from. So I got to connect to Streamlabs. You might have Stream Elements. There's a limited number of platforms that OBS will connect to. So you might not have, if you use something that they don't use, you might have just to stick with someone else's alerts. But in this case, I got Streamlabs. So you'd go to integration, Streamlabs, and you'd connect it to your account. If you have, and there's a whole bunch of other things too that you can connect to. So where's Stream Elements? Stream Elements is here. If you use Stream Elements, you can connect to them and you can get your tips from them. There's also a whole bunch of stuff I've never used, so I can't really speak to it, but how to use it. But it's probably pretty straightforward. Like, again, it's stuff you'd have to experiment with. If you connect to it, you could always set up a trigger do a test and then look at your variables in the action queue to see what variables are available to you, and then work from there. And I'm sure everything else pretty much would work similarly. So like you have treat stream, Tippy, throwing system. There's all sorts of different platforms, integrations that you can connect to. But we're using Streamlabs in my case. So we'll go to my donation alert. So I'll tell you, I use the Streamlabs donation. So add, I already showed you this, right? Add, not Streamlabs desktop. That's if you're using the Streamlabs. If you're using the Streamlabs streaming suite instead of this, you're going to go to integrations. You want Streamlabs for the donation. So you're just going to go to this, Streamlabs, and then you can click whatever you want. Donation, if you sell merch through Streamlabs, you can do a merch alert, but we're going to use donation. Okay? And then we're going to do like we did with all the others. We're going to set our image. Again, we've done this a bunch of times, so I don't need to go over that again. Set your text. Now, here's the little different thing. So you're going to want to use the right variables for this particular integration. So here, instead of username, it's donation from. That's going to be the name of the person. Now, there's different variables that go with donation. There's some that are just values, like it'll just be a decimal value. It won't have a dollar sign or anything or whatever, whatever currency that you're getting tipped in. We want donation formatted amount. So that way, whether they tip in dollars or pounds or euros or or yen or whatever currency, it'll format in that currency. So in my case, I'm in the States, it's going to be dollars. So this will be like you'll have a dollar sign in the amount to 2 decimal places. But I'll show you the different variables. So let's do a test trigger.
Freeloaders, keep the money coming.
This is a Streamlabs donation trigger test.
There it is. Okay. I had a delay. That's why. So this shows all the different things. So donation amount would be no formatting, no dollar sign. So you can, if you want to just do that, you can. I would rather have like a formatted amount, say dollar sign. And if you want, you even got, like, these are all the different variables. You can even have the donation currency that they send it in. So if you want to say, like, have it read out like USD, you can use that variable in your message. So that's the different variables. And again, donation from, that is the person who donated. And then everything else, you pretty much set up the same. Again, and Streamer.bot. If they send a message, the text is donation message. Very simple. So whatever message they sent with that tip is going to be a donation message. And unfortunately, I have no way of weeding out emotes. I don't think you can do emotes in a Streamlabs tip. I can't remember. And that will do, in that way, again, and everything else is set the same. See, I have this delay again. I wanted to stay on screen a little bit longer because I thought it was a little too fast otherwise. That's up to you. And then hide it. Otherwise, it works like all our other alerts other than just those different variables. So if I set that off.
Hey, freeloaders, keep the money coming.
This is a Streamlabs donation trigger test.
Okay. And then it's going to display a while because I have the delay. I have a 2-second delay. And again, you can I have a 1.5-second delay. You can set that for whatever you want. And it's like I said, it's all pretty straightforward how that all works. Like I said, once you figure it out one, you can kind of figure out the rest from there. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The only other thing I could add is in the queue, there's no way to tell it to have a delay between actions. And maybe you don't want all your actions going off like bing, bang, boom, one after the other. Like, let's say like 4 people donate one right after the other. And you don't want those alerts happening instantaneously right after each other. All you have to do really, we'll go to basically all you really have to do is just take one of these delays, put it at the end of all the sub actions and all your actions, and that'll mean that action will kind of continue on for a little longer, and it'll hold off before, and then so you could set it for like 30 seconds or whatever, and that way no other alerts in that queue will go off until that alert is done because you have blocking set up, and you can just tack that on to all your alerts, and that's a little workaround for that, since again there's no built-in delays you can add to the queue itself. Little thing I would suggest to the makers of Streamer.bot, that'd be like a nice little thing to add, is an option to have a delay between actions in a queue. But again, if you have other queues, it's not going to affect those queues. It'll just affect stuff in the queue that your alerts are in. So you don't have to worry about it like delaying another action queue. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's actually pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. And again, a lot of those alerts, like you can copy and paste a previous action and just rename it, change the trigger, and update a few things inside the sub actions to make it match what you're doing. And remember, I did a video on raid clips. So I'm going to go back in here, and I had, so this is my Twitch raid, right? Now in mine, I had this little execute code. That's where it plays the raider clip. That's the code that does the clips for a raider. That's what I did in the other video. And someone had asked me, well, how do I do all the stuff that displayed before it? This is how I had it. This is how I did it. It was all part of my Twitch raid action. And I just had all this stuff go off first. And then when it was done, it did the clip. It displayed the clip. Because of the way that that clip thing works, you could also add this to a shout out. So like the same variables you use to do a shout out, if you've ever done a shout out, if you have a shout out command, it also grabs the same variables. It grabs, where is it? The user ID, it uses that variable too. So if you wanted, and you want to say shout out a streamer who's in your chat, and you want a Twitch clip to play for them, then you can just take this same code and copy and paste it right into your shout out actions, sub actions, and it'll work there too. So when you then, if you do a shout out for someone, it'll give the link, and however you do, whether you have the link display in chat, whether you use a native Twitch shout out, and then it'll play the clip in OBS for you. And again, if you haven't watched that video yet, I'll link that in the description. I'll put it in the panels after this video is over, so you can check that out there. But again, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's not all that complicated, and it's a nice way to not use Streamlabs as much as possible. There are a couple of downsides, like you can't display emotes in the message. So if you want that, then this isn't going to be for you. And as far as your donation alert, again, downside to that is if someone has Streamlabs, like a Streamlabs Plus membership, whatever, and they have that little GIF that they can set off like a little GIF to play before the alert goes off, that's not going to work with this either. So if you want to keep your Streamlabs alerts for that, you can. The only thing with that is that could go off while your other alerts are going off because there's no way to block it. Actually, what you could do for that, an option you could do for that is you could set a trigger for Streamlabs donations and just make it like a really a good long time to cover like any pause. Like you could put a delay in that, just like make the only sub action a delay. That's like a good long time to give time for the Streamlabs alert for the donation to play, and it'll just and then that'll just hold a queue in Streamer.bot until that's done playing. And again, just I don't know how long. I mean, there's got to be a maximum length that those alerts will go off. I'd say, just set it a good long delay, and then you can still have those going off and have the Streamlabs alert for a Streamlabs donation go off. That would be, I would say, the only workaround I can think of for that. And then the Streamlabs Plus users or whatever it's called can have that little GIF play, and it'll look nice. And you can just put that browser source in the same place. And another thing I have done, instead of having a GIF go off, I know I'll bring that up, that in alerts I have alert video. So instead of doing sending something to the image source, you could send something to the video source, the media source. And let me show you, because I have an alert that does that. It's actually a command action, but it works the same. And instead of doing an image, you send it to an OBS media source. You set where that is, what file you want display it, use a delay for however long the video plays, and then hide it. And that way, you can do a video instead of a GIF if you want. And again, if you want text images and text and messages and everything like that, you could put the messages the same way you always did, and just again have that delay after video so that the video is done playing before it hides anything. So that's an option. Like if you don't want to do a GIF and a separate sound, if you just want a video, you can have a media source in OBS that it sets off, it sets off for that alert. You can use it. You can use your alerts for Twitch redemptions. Like you can use this for Twitch redemptions, and you use add Twitch channel reward, and then reward redemption. And then when like someone sets off a specific reward, like you set it up here what reward you want it to be, you can have it also set off an alert in OBS. And again, all that's going to work the same as all your other alerts. It's just a different trigger. And again, you want to put that in your alerts queue just so, again, it doesn't interrupt any other alerts. But again, it all works the same. It's just using a different trigger. So that's something, again, that you can't do. I don't think you can do with Streamlabs. I'm fairly certain in Streamlabs you can't do any alerts for Twitch point redemption. But with Streamer.bot, you can. That's pretty much everything. That's every kind of alert I've set up. If there's other kinds of alerts you want to do, again, it's pretty much just lather, rinse, repeat. Just put a different command, different trigger, and make sure you have the right variables for what you're doing. So I hope that was helpful to you. If it was helpful, give me a like. Let me know what you thought in the comments. And I hope this is something useful for you. If you've always said, Streamlabs is a pain in the butt. Sometimes their alerts just won't go off for me. And someday I might go into a video on how to do donation alerts for specific donation amounts. I may, because that's another thing that you could do with Streamlabs, that you might want to have specific donations for different specific alerts for different donation amounts. That's something you could set up, but that's for another video because that's going to get involved. This is getting long enough. So again, I hope that was helpful for you. And also, please check out my stream. I stream on Twitch and YouTube most Saturdays at about 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Otherwise, thanks for watching this video, and have a great day.